In the early days, the lectures were in the garden of Fazl Manzil. Pir Murshid sat under a tree, and Murids were sitting around, except when it was raining, and then everyone would take their chairs up in the drawing room. There are two things that I remember. One was every evening we had the prayers together in the big rooms in Fazl Manzil. And we had the prayers kneeling, of course, with the kneeling motion. And Murshid would lead the prayers then. The whole family, every evening. I remember that very well. I also remember the moment when Murshid had the inspiration of founding the Universal Worship. So in 23, I would have been 7 years old. So, of course, children like to crawl in the beds of their parents in the morning. But that morning, my mother said, no, you can't. You know, your Abba, your father, needs to be alone. So then we peeped through the door. And there was Murshid sitting like an emperor. I mean, it was incredible. Power coming through his being. I read now, of course, the words of Murshid when he speaks about what came through at that time, and he said, yes, this is the fulfillment of the wish of the prophets and saints and masters of all times. The day has come when the followers of these prophets can worship together. And he said, it is the way of the King of Kings. What people say, and of course I was a child, but I remember that feeling of tremendous power and great gentleness at the same time, a combination. And also great pride, he calls it the aristocracy of the soul, kingly pride, together with the greatest humility. That combination was extraordinary. He didn't, it's not like some of the gurus who put on sort of kind of show and airs. No, he was so gracious, so human, full of humor. He used to laugh, make jokes, and at the same time, it didn't take away anything of the holiness of his being, of course. Murshid, of course, in the first years, Murshid was using the word Sufi a lot. In fact, the early days, of course, some of the teaching was very similar on the pattern of the classical, traditional Sufi teachings, Sufi schools. But later on, Murshid used the word Sufi less and less, and he used the word message more and more. And he made it clear that the esoteric school was just a school of training for those who were spreading the message. And of course, then naturally people would ask Murshid, well, what is the message? What do you mean by the message? And of course, there's no way of exactly explaining it, but I think the most pertinent thing was when he said the message is the awakening of humanity to the divinity in man. And then came that ceremony of the founding of the cornerstone of the Universelle on the piece of land opposite the house. It was the last day, it was 13th of September 1926, the last day that Pir Murshid was amongst his murids in Suran, when he was going to lay the foundation stone of the Universelle, the temple of all religions. And on that occasion, processions, the black robes, which always seemed to me to be very mournful, and the incense and all that. You'll see that. And then several things occurred. One was that the representatives, national representatives of the different countries placed gold coins of their nation under the stone. And then I think it was my mother, placed a Gayan on the stone, Gayadvadanirtan. I remember Murshid, one hand on my head and then the other one. That I remember. And also I remember the incredible power coming through those hands. That I do remember very well.